Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start today's story with an example of workplace micromanagement gone completely haywire, featuring a pregnant employee, an obsessively clean boss, and a dusty dark blue carpet that seems to be the villain of the tale. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Pregnant worker turns petty revenge into a noisy nightmare for her obsessive boss. I work as a secretary/accountant/front desk in a construction company. I'm 6 months pregnant, and I don't want to be very whining, but being pregnant's generally difficult. Anyway, because we're a construction company, people who come and go to our office often have dusty shoes and they leave their footprints on the carpet. We have a very dark-themed office, and our carpets are dark blue. I've told my boss several times that we need to change these carpets, or we shouldn't use them at all, because everywhere is covered with dust so quick. But my boss wants the office to be as clean as a house. At first, when he said, "Clean up here," I would say, "Sure," and clean it. Then he started obsessing over this carpet thing. I've told several times that there are a lot of people going in and out. It's difficult to clean the floors every effing time. And because I'm pregnant, I get tired very quickly. Several times when I went to the bank or somewhere for work, he asked why the office was so dirty in my absence, or he asked why the doormat was so dusty when there's a literal windstorm outside. Last week, he basically yelled at me and said, "Don't be so lazy. When someone comes in and out, you'll sweep the floor immediately." Last week, I ran the vacuum cleaner behind every single person coming in and out, even if there was someone waiting for me to do their job. I said I'd make them wait a bit and clean the floor because my boss told me so. My boss didn't speak up for the first few days, but then the people waiting for me started complaining. "Do you have to vacuum around in the middle of your job? This is a workplace. Of course the place will get dirty. Wow, that's a loud vacuum. You're pregnant. Is it okay for you to do this? Just stop it. I have places to be." Doing all of this made my back pain disastrous, but I endured. Yesterday, my boss finally couldn't stand the noise and exploded. "Do you have to vacuum the floor 45 times a day?" "No, sir, I don't have to, but you told me to do this." He knew very well what he did and said, and that's why he was angry at me. He left angry yesterday, and today hasn't even arrived. Should I keep doing what he said? LOL. Edit. I live in Turkey. The unemployment rate is very high, and we have no rights other than the minimum wage and some basic health insurance. We have a squad of 4 people except my boss. The manager is the boss's wife, our civil engineer, his son, our driver's an old uncle, and there's me. Trust me, there's no place to complain. You're just grateful for your minimum wage. I tried so hard to get paid maternity leave. We don't have many mentions in international news, but as a country, we're in a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, it's pretty bad, and I'm just glad that I have this crappy job. So I'm doing what they want me to do. I'm a university graduate accountant, but unfortunately, you gotta do what you gotta do. Well, first of all, you only did what you were told to do. You can't really get away with doing otherwise until he tells you to. Second of all, it's not really your problem how he chooses to react. But I also can't help but wonder if you were in a workers' union or if HR would agree that a secretary/front desk worker also has to be the cleaning staff. What exactly does your contract say about your job tasks? Something tells me that your boss is making you occupy 2 different work titles and only pays you to do one at the same time as 2 workers. If I were in your position, I'd definitely have my workers' union or HR looking into that. And our second story. Want to write me up? Sure. I have a patient who deals with occasional mental confusion. He usually has a personal aide, so he's used to getting whatever he wants when he wants it. I pride myself on being able to get along with and even build relationships with the most difficult of patients, but he's proved difficult for me due to the combination of entitlement and his confusion. He had his son visiting him today and was severely under the impression that his son was taking him home. Any attempt of explanation fell on deaf ears. His son left, but he didn't give up. He insisted I take him to the front door and let him leave despite there being freezing rain and no one to take him anywhere. Eventually, after 3 times of him telling me to take him to the door and my futile attempts to redirect or reassure, he told me if I wouldn't take him to the door, he'd write me up for insubordination. I figured why not? At least writing me up would keep him distracted from trying to leave, and it truly seemed like the only way to calm him down. There were at least 5 witnesses to what was happening, so I wasn't worried about facing any discipline. I grabbed the complaint form, a pen, and a clipboard for him. As I did this, the nurse caught on to what I was doing and started just laughing. I brought her the form and even helped him fill it out, spelling my full name for him and showing my name tag as proof that I was giving my real name. Eventually, I have to move to stand behind him because I can't hide my laughter. My director of nursing comes over and the nurse explained the situation. I bring the patient over to her and he hands the form in. I just have the biggest crap-eating grin as everyone's going purple trying to contain their laughter. My Don was a total bro about it and played along with it while also taking him to play bingo, satisfied that I was being appropriately reprimanded. The Don let me keep the complaint form as long as I completely scratched out his information and I framed it next to my Employee of the Month certificate. Thank you for helping people who are so medically confused. It's a fine line to walk, but you have to handle a patient's unfortunate anger and confusion without laughing in his face. And in memory care, you may have to have the same argument several times daily. A toast to you and your challenges. And our last story. Entitled neighbors secretly used our pool for years. A few years ago, my husband and I bought a lovely home with a pool. It's been great. Quiet neighborhood, decent folks, and plenty of space to enjoy. At least that's how it started. But as it turns out, our seemingly peaceful neighborhood was hiding some serious drama, and we were about to become the unwilling stars of it. The neighbors to the right are a family of 6 parents, twin college-age daughters, a teenage son, and a young daughter in elementary school. We never had much to do with them outside of the occasional wave, but they seemed fine. Or so we thought. This year, we decided not to open the pool. Between helping 2 sick family members and my medication making me sensitive to the sun, it just wasn't in the cards. But every time the youngest daughter saw us, she'd ask, "When are you opening the pool?" At first, we just brushed it off with vague answers, but one day when she asked again, I told her flat out, "We're probably not opening it this year." The kid started crying, like full-on tears. I stood there baffled while she ran home. Why was she so upset? We've never invited them to use the pool. Later that day, our neighbor on the left filled us in on a shocking secret. Our pool had been the site of 4th of July bashes hosted by the family on the right without our knowledge. Every year when we went to our lake house, they'd throw massive parties in our backyard. They cleaned up so well afterward that we never suspected a thing. The left side neighbor assumed we knew about it and had given them permission. We hadn't. My husband was livid. Not only had they trespassed, but they'd done so repeatedly with strangers on our property. What if someone got hurt? What if they damaged something? He decided to act. First, we contacted our tech-savvy friend Mike, who specializes in home security. Mike agreed to help install new cameras covering the pool area and upgrade our gate with a remote lock system. But my husband wanted to catch them red-handed before making changes, so we had the pool open to bait them into trespassing again. And oh, did they fall for it. By July 3rd, the pool was sparkling clean, just waiting for the next day's fireworks. My husband parked our car around the block to make it look like we'd left for the holiday weekend. Mike set up temporary cameras around the yard to monitor every angle. Then we waited. Sure enough, by noon on July 4th, the neighbors struck. One by one, cars started pulling up and people began streaming into our backyard. By 2 p.m., it was a full-blown party. The twins and their friends were doing cannonballs into the pool, the parents were grilling on our patio, and little kids were running wild, leaving snack wrappers and juice boxes everywhere. One particularly bold guest even brought a karaoke machine and started belting out off-key renditions of Sweet Caroline. It was chaos. But the best part, the cameras captured it all. My husband and I called the police, explaining the situation. When they arrived, it was glorious. Officers entered through the gate, thanks to our lock, and immediately began shutting the party down. One officer announced, "This is private property. Everyone who doesn't live here needs to leave immediately." Cue the screaming. Karen, the matriarch of the family, rushed over screeching, "This is ridiculous. We've been using this pool for years. They said it was fine." "Ma'am," the officer said flatly, "do you have written permission from the owners?" Karen sputtered, "They're never here on holidays. They don't even use the pool. It's practically ours." The officer wasn't having it. "If you don't leave now, you'll be charged with trespassing." Most of the guests bolted, leaving Karen, her husband, and their mortified kids behind. The twins tried to explain that it was just a fun tradition, but the cops weren't buying it. Karen doubled down, calling us selfish and elitist for not sharing our community resources. "Ma'am," the officer said, "this is not a community pool. This is private property and you're trespassing." As Karen continued to rant, her husband quietly tried to herd their kids out, but the fireworks weren't over yet, because just as they were leaving, the karaoke guy yelled, "Hey, don't forget your grill." Yep, they'd wheeled their own grill into our yard without asking. The officer shook his head and added theft to the trespassing charges. But we weren't done. The next day, my husband sent a formal cease and desist letter through our lawyer explicitly forbidding the neighbors from entering our property. He included screenshots from the camera footage complete with timestamps. To add a cherry on top, we also had our insurance agent send a letter explaining that their trespassing put us at risk of liability. Any future violations would result in immediate legal action. For the rest of the summer, we made it a point to enjoy our pool loudly. We threw pool parties, blasting music, laughing, and having a blast. Karen's family could only watch from their windows, seething. Karen tried to rally the neighborhood against us, claiming we were ruining the community. But instead of support, she got backlash. The other neighbors were sick of her entitled behavior and sided with us. Even the left side neighbor, who'd initially stayed neutral, told us they were glad someone finally put Karen in her place. Calling the cops and watching them shut down the party must have been so satisfying. And Karen's meltdown about community resources, a classic. The cease and desist letter and insurance warning were just the cherry on top, leaving no wiggle room for her antics. Guys, have you ever dealt with neighbors this entitled? Share your stories, because I'm living for this drama. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.